Hello and welcome to the Calculator Guide video on solving a compound interest problem using the Casio Classwiz solver. We're going to use the solver feature on the Classwiz to help us answer this question. Mrs. Richards invests £2,000 in Astrobank at a fixed interest rate of 1.75% per year. Mr. Fogel invests £1,600 in Binary Bank at a fixed interest rate of 2.9% per year. Mr. Fogel and Mrs. Richards invest their money at the same time. The value of Mr. Fogel's investment will exceed the value of Mrs. Richards' investment after X complete years, and we've got to find the value of X. So let's just break this question down a little bit. Now, what we're saying is that, well, Mrs. Richards has got more to invest at first. She's got £2,000, whereas Mr. Fogel has got £1,600. But Mr. Fogel has invested in an account with a higher rate of interest, which means his investment will be building up at a quicker rate, which means at some point in the future, Mr. Fogel's investment is going to exceed that of Mrs. Richards, and we've got to find out how many years away that particular point is. This is obviously given that there's no other amounts added into the investment, that they're just going to stay with the initial $2,000 and $1,600 and allow the interest to accrue each year. Now, to help us out with this problem, we need the compound interest formula. So it is the value of the investment equals the principal is your starting amount, multiplied by, well, in the brackets we've got 1 plus R is the interest rate as a percentage over 100, we want to essentially change that to a decimal. And then within the brackets, that's raised to the power of n, where n is the number of years that investment is done for. So we're going to use this formula to help us out. Now I'm just going to write out a statement, including the information that we've got from the question there, which we want to be true. So let's just take a look at this. So on the left hand side, we've got Mr. Fogel's investment. We've got 1,600 being the principal amount, multiplied by, well, in brackets we've got 1 plus, then we've got his interest rate on the top, 2.9% over 100. And then we're raising that. Well, I've made n the x because we're going to be using the calculator to help us solve this. X we don't know yet. We're wanting to try and find that. And I've introduced a greater than symbol, so we want to know when Mr. Fogel's investment is greater than Mrs. Richards. Mrs. Richards on the right hand side there, 2,000 times 1 plus 1.75 over 100, and again that's going to be to the power of x. X will be the same for both in this case so that we can solve it. Now what we're going to do is to input this into the Classwiz and use the solver function to be able to establish what that power of x is, and therefore how many complete years we would need for Mr. Fogel's investment to exceed that of Mrs. Richards. So let's carefully input this into the calculator. Now what I'm going to do is just simplify what we've got in the brackets there. So 1 plus 2.9 over 100, well, that is 1.029. Essentially, this is a multiplier for a percentage increase there, increasing by 2.9% each time. And then we want to raise that to the power of, well, I'm just going to input x. Now, make sure you navigate right, so we're on the main working line here. Now, we can't use an inequality symbol, the greater than symbol, in the solver feature, but we can use an equals, and that will help us to find the critical value that we need. So if you press alpha and then the calc feature, you can see there's a little equal sign here above that. That will put an equals where we have a greater than sign in inequality. And then you want to input the right hand side Mrs. Richards' investment in there carefully, 2,000 times, and again we'll input the rate as a decimal, 1.0175, and that's to the power of x. Okay, so now we're going to solve for x. This should find the amount of time when the two investments will be equal. So if you press shift and then solve, you can see we've brought up x here. This 5 that's already in there, yours might be different. That's just a previous value of x that we would have used, but it's going to change when we press equals at this point once the Classwiz has solved our equation for us. So if you just press equals here, and there will be some processing time here, and here we have our solution. X equals 19.85 to 2 decimal places, so that time is in years, so 19.85 years. So at that time, at that precise time, Mr. Fogel and Mrs. Richards' investments will be the same. And then it said, well, after how many complete years will Mr. Fogle's investment be worth more? Well, essentially what we're going to do is we're going to round this up. And that accounts for the greater than. We want to know when it's greater than, well, it's going to be at the next whole number of years up. So that's going to be 20 years. So after 20 years, Mr. Fogle's investment will be worth more than Mrs. Richards. So we just round that up to 20 years. So there we go, how we can use the solver feature to answer a problem involving compound interest, where we're looking for the number of years in which an investment can grow. But that's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time on the Calculator Guide.